How's it going, guys? Welcome to the Diamond channel. I'm Chris Bilton. I was a professional jeweller in the UK for over 20 years. Then I moved to Japan, so I'm out here now keeping my skills alive and putting them to good use by making jewellery making instructional videos. So welcome, please click like and subscribe and all that. Helps the channel grow. Yeah, my channel may be of interest to you if you're looking to start jewellery or you're just doing it as a hobby at home, because I am literally at home. I'm in my home in a room upstairs. So I've got no fancy equipment, no laser welders, none of that stuff. Just basic tools, like the cheaper end of all the tools as well. And I'm at home and I'm still able to make things quite nicely, so I hope my channel is of interest to you and going to be helpful. All my videos will literally be speaking directly to you if you're working from home. Cool, yeah, right, I've got some new patrons I've got to say thank you to. My phone's turned itself off. Why is it on that screen? Oh, God. Come on! Stephen Costa, thank you Stephen, and Davis Coleman, two new patrons I got yesterday and this morning, so thank you very much guys, really appreciate that. If you want to help me yourself, there's links in the description to join, to become a Diamond Mountain member or become a patron of the channel. Really helps me, like really genuinely does contribute a lot to helping me do more on the channel. So cool, yeah, thank you. And what we're doing today, I've really got to work on my communication skills. I'm making this ring, yeah, so I'm at the stage where the collets got to go in the shank, so I want to just really highlight, knuckle down, concentrate on what goes on in my mind as I'm lining up a collet in a shank, because it's one of those parts of the job that can go smoothly or it can be a nightmare driving you mad. So yeah, I want to help you out if you're struggling at that stage and end up with a nice ring, because you can have that really nicely made, you can have that really nicely made. You can still end up with a terrible looking ring if you get this stage wrong, so I want to show you what I do. Oh my god, is he working in platinum, not silver? Alright, settle down. So, note, giving it a reasonably good polish all over before I'm putting these platinum parts together. Really help. Platinum, it takes so much work to get things polished nicely, so if that was all scratchy and filed up and then I put it in and then I had to get all this section all polished nicely, is difficult. You can do it, but it's a lot of work. It saves you time and you'll do a better job by getting everything polished first before you put it together. So anyway, I'm putting this in there, shoulders and everything all adjusted. By the way, do you recognise this? This was from my previous video that make a ring from Pinterest. I changed my mind on the stone I was going to put in it. The stone I'm using now is a bit shorter, so I literally had to, I don't know if you can tell, where is it? There's a solder joint there. I literally just chopped one end off and then shortened it and then put it back on. So this fits the new stone, and the shank is still really chunky now, but the way I made it in that video was way too chunky. I don't know what I was thinking. So anyway, so it's adjusted and there's going to be diamonds set down there. I decided 4 each side. So I'm putting the collet in, yeah. The shoulders have to match that flat at the bottom one, flat at the top. It has to sit at that angle, and that angle has to be the same, mirroring both sides. Obviously the same as the collet, so you need to make adjustments to get that fit in. So I'm nearly there, but when I'm putting the collet in, I sort of line at the bottom at the height I want it, not going too low or anything. And if you can see at the top, there's a bit of a gap. See, it can rattle. So that means I've got a bit of a gap there. That's where I'm looking. So it rattles backwards and forwards. So I've got to take a little bit more weight off the bottom ones, just to allow the top one to come across a little bit more. When I'm making like minute adjustments, a lot of it, rather than sight, it's by feel. So I'll put my file flat against the bottom one, flat against the top. I sort of want my file touching the top, but my weight is pushing more on the bottom one. And I feel that. So I just, bear in mind, I think that's enough. And then I'll try and do exactly the same on the other side, because I've been working where I've been trying to keep them the same. So touching the top, a bit of weight on the bottom. So pushing it down, same amount. Still need to do a bit more. Still a bit of movement there. It's tight, but it can be a bit better. You can always have a look from the side as well, make sure you liking how it looks, because sometimes one side, whether it's true or not, one side may look longer than the other. You can, on purpose, make things wrong to make them look right. So measurements wise, it might be wrong, but you get weird illusions, like the sharpness of that cut can make it look longer, even though it's actually the same. Just weird things go on, and so you can, once you're aware of them, you see them, you can, on purpose, do things a bit wrong. Like say that one looks longer because that point's sharper, I'll file that one a bit more, I'll pull it across this way a little bit, and it'll look neat, but actually, you're going around it with the digital calipers, you'll find mistakes. That's a bit better now. I don't know if I'm showing up. You can see it's looking a bit tighter now. There's a tiny rattle, but it's basically there. I mean, I literally can just paper disc it and get that correct. Looking down there, make sure they're going straight across. Yeah, essentially I'm going to touch it a little bit more, but that is basically ready to be soldered in there now. Now I've been taking distance out of the bottom one, so I had to push it in gently, like a tiny amount. Again, it's more about feel rather than actually watching it and trying to make it reduce a little bit. Just squeeze it and feel it move a little bit. And then I want to be able to push that in and then it stop nicely at the bottom. I don't want it going down any lower than it needs to, because otherwise when I fire it round again I'll be taking loads of metal off this edge, which I really don't want. There are circumstances where that might be beneficial, like you've got a big chunky bezel or something going in there that's too heavy. You might put it in too low on purpose, so then you just file off the bottom. But each job is a bit different like that. So I want to be able to push this in, bit of tension now, and it should just kind of grip nicely. There you go. So it fits nicely, so tension is just right, all the distances are good, it's holding in 4 points. My file marks are going that way, which helps. I've got file lines going across the ends of the shanks, so that helps grip that collet as well. So that is really like convenient for soldering. Now when it comes to lining things up, getting all the angles correct, you've got to choose its position for soldering. Sometimes you just put it in, you think, yeah, looks about right, yeah, it's okay. Look all around it and put one solder in, double check it, it's like, it's fine. It can just go so smoothly. Or you can spend like 50-55 minutes just looking at it, dropping it, changing it around, like, oh god, it can just drive you mad sometimes. To the point where you just stop and just leave the bench and go and have lunch or something, just because your eyes get kind of tired of looking at it. It's nice when you work with other jewellers, because sometimes you just can't, you can get it in there straight, but there's just something about it you don't like, and you're not entirely sure what it is. So it's nice when you're working with other jewellers, you can just show it to them, and like you can ask them, is that alright? And then quite often they will just look at it and think, yeah, it was in the middle, but one claw's off like that, and you think, I didn't realise that. So yeah, basically it's potential to drive you mad getting things in, getting collets in shanks nice and straight. So what I do is, your shank needs to be nice and round. If it's a little bit egg-shaped, as long as it's, like say I just squeezed it in and it's noticeable it's a little bit egg-shaped, as long as it's like symmetrically egg-shaped, you'll be alright. And not a lot as well. So yeah, just putting it in my fingers, I'm looking at that bottom one, making sure the collet sits down at the right height. Sort of roughly in the middle. So I'm checking its height basically, it's up and down where it's sitting. I am checking that it's in the middle. And not just in the middle, it's got to be dead straight as well. Like the shank's going completely across, so the shank's not doing that. The shank is round, the shank is not twisted, it's going straight across. That is perfectly up to that going across. Going across the centre, so the shank is not up or down like that. Helps understand that by looking at it this way as well. I tend to look at, let me give me some pointer. at it with. I tend to not just judge the shank to the centre in between the claws, but actually look at that flat section and that flat section, both sides. Are they mirroring distance? Looking around it, and you've got to check that one. Sometimes you get weird things happening, like it will be dead in the centre, there and there, but then when you look at it that way, it looks more one side. So you've got to figure out what's going on. Like, why is that? Is it the angle of that claw? There's one claw got sort of a chunky solder joint or something, which just gives it an illusion of it being a bit closer to the side. Is your shank, like, I've got a very gentle kind of flare of width at the top. I'm not sure if that's even noticeable on camera, but I wanted that on purpose, just because that's what that Pinterest one had, which I liked about it. Just ever so slightly wider at the top than the bottom. So, what was I saying? Yeah, so I've got that bit of a curve on there. Maybe the curve is slightly different on one side of the shank. So it sits dead in the middle there, but looking at it from the side, it's got a bit more of a chunky kind of curvature on one side. All these weird illusions can throw off your eye. So checking that angle, shank's going dead across, it's nice and round, it's at the right height. Just loads of things can drive you mad trying to get it right. I kind of go on about accuracy quite a lot, and I think part of that is what was taught to me, like things had to be made really well because we were making expensive stuff. But also it just makes your life easier. Like, just spending a bit more time making things accurately, the next step is so much easier. Like, if I made this collet a bit wonky, like the claws were slightly not parallel, they're slightly out like that, it causes a lot of problems at this stage, because then it just won't go in straight and it just looks wonky. And if that had a big expensive tanzanite or something in it, someone's gonna cough up $6.5 grand for this ring, and you were making it, you spent like 3 days making it, and it's just looking awful at the very final stages. Very likely the customer's going to pick up at that and they're going to complain. And you might go all the way to the finish mark, getting it all finished and all polished, knowing that it's not made very well. Customer complains. You basically got to start again. You just made your life much more difficult, wasted loads of time, upset the customer. So make things accurately, just for your own sake of having a less stressful time finishing a piece of jewellery. Just makes every step of it easier, right up to the finish line where the customer's collecting it. So that's it. That was the entire reason for this video. I just wanted to show and highlight this little moment of putting a ring together, putting the collet in the shank. There's quite a lot going on, and you have to be really careful with it. It's nice when it holds itself in position. So I know jewellers, I never use it, but a lot of jewellers wrap things up in wire. That just sounds like a nightmare to me, having to be so precise about its position, all its angles, and then covered in wire to hold it in that position. That just sounds like a very troublesome thing to me. So it's great if you can make it nicely so everything just holds together, like without even squeezing it together with tweezers. It helps you a lot. So when it's not covered in wire and tweezers and stuff, you can actually move it around and look at all directions, and then when you're really confident, go for your solder. I would, even after soldering, I would recommend doing one solder with a small piece of solder, like tack it on is what we call it, and then we'll let it cool down and then look around it again and like double check it, and before you do all the other solders. So just proceed carefully to get it done really well.